Ever try to explain like a magic trick to your dog?
Yeah.
You wave your hands, you hide the treat, you try to get them to follow along,
Right.
but they just look right through you.
Yeah.
And it's like that because animals,
Yeah.
even our closest primate relatives,
Yeah.
don't quite grasp communication like we do.
Yeah.
And today we're taking a deep dive into like what makes human language so unique.
It really is fascinating.
Yeah,
It's a journey back to the roots of what makes us human.
definitely. And we're using Michael Tomasello's book, Origins of Human Communication, as our roadmap.
Great book.
Yeah, it's a dense read, but it's full of these like aha moments
Yes.
that completely change how you think about language.
Absolutely. And Tomasello, he starts by looking at apes.
Okay.
They do communicate intentionally,
Okay.
especially through gestures,
Uh-huh.
but he argues that there's a fundamental difference in how they use those gestures compared to humans.
Okay. So let's dive into that.
Yeah.
What's going on in the ape world of communication?
Well, imagine a chimp begging for food.
Yeah.
Or a gorilla trying to initiate play.
Uh-huh.
They use gestures to achieve their goals.
Right.
What's more, they seem to understand that these gestures have an effect on others.
Okay.
They even adjust their communication based on whether someone is watching them, which shows a pretty sophisticated level of social awareness.
So they're not just mindlessly
Wow.
making noises or gestures.
Exactly.
There's an intention behind their actions.
Exactly. There's intentionality.
Right.
But Tomasello argues that their intentionality is primarily focused on individual needs.
Okay.
It's about getting what they want,
Right.
rather than establishing shared understanding.
So it's more about me than we.
That's a great way to put it.
Okay.
And that focus on individual needs has profound implications for how their communication systems develop.
Okay.
They don't create the complex grammars
Right.
or shared conventions that we see in human language.
Because if you're not trying to build like a shared understanding,
Right.
why bother with all that complexity?
Exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
But I've seen videos of chimps using sign language.
Right.
Doesn't that challenge this idea?
It's a fascinating point.
Yeah.
Tomasello actually addresses this.
Okay.
He points out that apes raised by humans
Ah.
who are immersed in a world of language and cooperation
Yeah.
can learn to use human-like communication systems,
Right.
like sign language,
Uh-huh.
to request things.
Okay.
However, we don't see this same complexity in their natural communication with each other.
So they're capable of learning these complex systems,
Right.
but they don't seem to develop them on their own.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And Tomasello suggests that this difference boils down to one key ingredient:
Okay.
a drive to cooperate and share information,
Okay.
not just to fulfill individual needs.
Okay.
It's this drive that sets the stage for the emergence of human language.
So even before we start talking, there's something fundamentally different about how humans approach communication.
Yes, even in infancy, we see signs of this cooperative drive.
Mm.
Think about a baby pointing at a toy.
Oh, okay.
They're not just trying to get you to fetch it for them.
Right.
Often they want you to share in their excitement,
Yeah.
to look at the toy with them, to connect.
It's like they're saying, hey, look at this cool thing. Isn't it amazing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that desire to share attention and experience,
Uh-huh.
to build what Tomasello calls shared intentionality,
Okay.
is a core building block of human communication.
Mm-hmm.
It's this constant effort to align our minds to create a common ground of understanding.
I never thought of it that way. So even a simple act like pointing
Yes.
reveals something profound about our social nature,
Yes.
our need to connect.
Our desire to share, to build that shared understanding.
Yeah.
And that foundation of shared intentionality is crucial
Well,
for how language itself evolves.
Okay, so how do we get from pointing and miming,
Right.
these early forms of communication, to actually speaking, to using words and grammar?
Well, it's a gradual process.
Okay.
But those early gestures are the building blocks.
Okay.
Think about pointing.
Uh-huh.
It's like a proto-noun.
Okay.
You're directing someone's attention to a specific thing.
Okay.
Just like a noun refers to a person, place, or thing.
Right.
And miming an action is like a proto-verb.
Okay.
You're conveying an action or state of being,
Okay.
which is what verbs do.
So even before we have words, we're already using gestures in a way that anticipates the structure of language.
Yeah, it's like
those gestures contain the seeds of grammar.
That's a great way to think about it.
Yeah.
And as our need to communicate more complex information grows, those simple gestures evolve into more structured systems.
Okay.
We need ways to distinguish who did what to whom, to talk about events that happened in the past.
Right.
Or might happen in the future.
And that's where grammar comes in.
Exactly.
Okay.
Grammar provides the framework for combining those basic units of meaning, those proto-nouns and proto-verbs, into more complex and nuanced expressions.
So it's like moving from building with blocks to building with Legos.
Yeah.
You suddenly have all these new ways to connect things.
Yeah.
To create more elaborate structures.
Exactly.
And are there real-world examples?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Of this kind of linguistic evolution happening?
One of the most fascinating is Nicaraguan Sign Language.
Okay.
It emerged spontaneously in a school for deaf children.
Wow.
And over just a few generations,
Yeah.
it developed complex grammatical structures. It went from a system of simple gestures to a full-fledged language right before researchers' eyes.
That's incredible. So it wasn't just a matter of individual brains getting smarter.
It's a social phenomenon. Yeah.
It's driven by this need to connect and share information.
Exactly. And Tomasello argues that this drive for shared intentionality wasn't just about transmitting information efficiently.
Right.
It was also about building and maintaining social bonds, sharing information, even gossip.
Right.
Helped our ancestors bond and create social norms.
Absolutely.
Which in turn shaped the evolution of language.
It all works together.
So language is about more than just conveying facts.
Yes.
It's woven into the fabric of our social lives.
Yes.
It's how we connect with each other.
Yes.
How we build relationships.
It's how we signal who we are.
Yeah.
It's how we create our identity.
Yeah. And how we establish our place in the group.
Exactly.
That's a crucial point.
It is.
And it helps explain why we're so attuned to the social nuances of language.
Absolutely.
Why we care so much about how we say things, not just what we say.
Exactly.
Wow, I'm already seeing language in a whole new light.
That's great. But if this drive to connect is so universal, why are there so many different languages?
That's a great question.
Why not one universal language for all humankind?
It's a question that has puzzled linguists for centuries.
Okay.
To understand it, we need to think about language, not just as a biological instinct, but also as a cultural artifact. It's something we learn from our social groups, and like any cultural creation, it's constantly evolving.
Okay, so it's not just about our genes.
Right.
It's about how those genes interact with our environment.
Exactly.
Like the specific cultures and communities we're born into.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Tomasello argues that as languages are passed down through generations, they undergo changes, variations, and adaptations influenced by the unique needs and experiences of those communities.
Like language isn't static.
Right.
It's constantly being shaped and reshaped by the people who use it.
Absolutely.
So over time, those variations accumulate, leading to the incredible diversity of languages we see today.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Yeah. But it still seems amazing that something as fundamental as language
is amazing.
Could be so varied.
Yeah. It is. But even with all that variation, there are striking commonalities across languages.
Okay.
The way we structure sentences, the way we express relationships between things, the way we convey time.
Right.
There are universal patterns that reflect our shared cognitive architecture, our shared human experience.
So underneath all that diversity, there's a unity.
Exactly.
A common thread that connects all human languages.
Yes, and Tomasello points to those three grammars we discussed earlier, requesting, informing, and sharing as evidence of this unity. These grammars, in some form or another, are present in all human languages.
Okay.
They reflect our fundamental drive to connect with each other, to get our needs met, to share information, and to build relationships.
Like we're all working with the same basic set of ingredients, but we're creating different dishes, different flavors, depending on our cultural context.
That's a great analogy.
Thanks. But let's go back to my earlier question.
Sure.
How did this drive for cooperative communication, this we mindset, actually evolve in the first place?
That's a great question.
Because our ape cousins aren't exactly known for their generosity.
Right.
So what pushed humans down this path of sharing and collaborating?
Well, Tomasello argues that several factors played a crucial role.
Okay.
One key factor was the increasing complexity of the tasks our ancestors faced. Think about hunting large game.
Yeah.
Or coordinating a group to gather food.
Okay.
These activities require sophisticated planning, coordination, and a shared understanding of roles.
So it wasn't enough to just know what someone was doing.
Right.
You had to understand why they were doing it.
Exactly.
What their goals were.
Right.
How their actions fit into the larger plan.
Exactly. And that kind of understanding requires what Tomasello calls shared intentionality.
Okay.
It's the ability to not just see someone's actions, but to grasp their intentions, to share a common goal, and to work together to achieve it.
And those who were better at this shared intentionality.
Right.
At reading each other's minds and coordinating their actions had a survival advantage.
Exactly. They were more successful collaborators, which meant more food, better protection, and a higher likelihood of passing on their genes.
It's fascinating to think about how these social pressures, these survival challenges, could have shaped the very structure of our minds.
Absolutely.
Our ability to understand and connect with each other.
It really is a powerful example of how,
our social nature is intertwined with our cognitive abilities.
Right.
And Tomasello points to some interesting observations about chimpanzees to further support this idea.
Tell me more.
Well, while chimps are capable of collaborating to a certain extent, their ability to share the spoils of their cooperation often breaks down.
Okay.
They'll work together to hunt, for example, but then they'll squabble over the meat.
So they can cooperate to achieve a goal, but their focus on individual gain often undermines their ability to truly collaborate.
Exactly. In contrast, humans evolved a greater tolerance for sharing, a willingness to put the good of the group ahead of individual interests. And this shift from me to we was a crucial step in the evolution of human communication.
It's like we had to learn to play nice with each other, to share the spoils, to see ourselves as part of a larger collective.
In order to unlock the full potential of language.
That's a great insight.
Thanks. But there's another fascinating piece to this puzzle. Reputation.
Ah, yes, reputation.
How does that fit into the evolution of language?
Think about it.
Okay.
If you're known as someone who helps others, who shares information willingly, who's generally cooperative and trustworthy, you become a more valuable social partner.
People are more likely to trust you, to collaborate with you.
Absolutely.
To share with you in return.
Exactly.
Like building social capital.
Exactly. So there's a social incentive to be seen as a cooperative communicator.
Okay.
Someone who contributes to the group's well-being. And that incentive would have driven the evolution of these pro-social communication skills.
So it's not just about conveying information efficiently. It's about signaling our trustworthiness to the group, showing that we're reliable partners that we can be counted on. And that, in turn, strengthens the social bonds that are so crucial for human survival.
You've hit the nail on the head. It's a complex interplay of cognitive abilities, social pressures, and cultural evolution.
But how do we go from those early gestures and cooperative impulses to the structured complexity of language itself?
That's a great question.
How do we get from pointing and miming to words and grammar?
It is a huge leap. And Tomasello argues that it happened gradually, building on those pre-linguistic forms of communication.
So we're not just talking about random mutations or sudden leaps in brain power.
It's about how those early forms of communication, those shared intentions, laid the groundwork for language to evolve.
Okay, so let's unpack that a bit further.
Okay.
Imagine a group of early humans digging for tubers.
Okay.
A valuable food source. Someone might mime the action of digging. Directing attention to a particularly good spot.
Exactly.
So they're not just digging randomly. They're sharing information about where to find food.
Exactly.
They're cooperating to ensure the group's survival.
Exactly. And over time, that mime, consistently used in that context, could become associated with the concept of digging. Becoming a symbol representing the action itself. It's like the gesture itself takes on a new meaning, a shared meaning that goes beyond the immediate context.
So the gesture, initially iconic and understood because of the shared context, becomes a symbol representing the action itself.
Exactly.
It's like a proto-word, a precursor to the kind of abstract symbols we use in language.
That's a brilliant way to put it.
Yeah.
And that's how you start to get words, arbitrary symbols that stand in for concepts. But words alone don't make a language. We need grammar to combine those words into meaningful sentences. And Tomasello argues that grammar evolved in a similar way, driven by the need to communicate increasingly complex information, to express relationships, and to weave together narratives.
So we go from lion there to the lion chased the antelope yesterday.
Exactly.
We're not just pointing and grunting anymore. We're creating elaborate sentences that convey a whole sequence of events, a story.
Exactly. And that's where we really start to see the power of language, the power to not just share information, but to share experiences, to transport each other to different times and places, to create a shared world of meaning.
This is blowing my mind. But before we get too carried away, we need to take a closer look at how those three grammars, requesting, informing, and sharing, actually shaped the evolution of grammar.
It's a great question.
How did those fundamental motives push language to become more complex, more nuanced, more capable of expressing the richness of human experience?
That's a great question, and it's one that takes us to the heart of what makes human language so unique. But we'll have to save that for our next segment. Stay tuned.
All right. We're back and ready to tackle this puzzle of language diversity. We've established that humans have this deep-seated drive to connect and share, which underpins our unique communication abilities. But if that's so universal, why aren't we all speaking the same language?
It's a question that has puzzled linguists for centuries. To understand it, we need to think about language, not just as a biological instinct, but also as a cultural artifact. It's something we learn from our social groups, and like any cultural creation, it's constantly evolving.
So it's not just about our genes. It's about how those genes interact with our environment.
Exactly.
With the specific cultures and communities we're born into.
Precisely. Tomasello argues that as languages are passed down through generations, they undergo changes, variations, and adaptations, influenced by the unique needs and experiences of those communities.
Think about it. Language isn't static. It's constantly being shaped and reshaped by the people who use it.
Absolutely.
So over time, those variations accumulate, leading to the incredible diversity of languages we see today. Does that make sense? But it still seems amazing that something as fundamental as language could be so varied.
It is amazing. But even with all that variation, there are striking commonalities across languages. The way we structure sentences, the way we express relationships between things, the way we convey time. There are universal patterns that reflect our shared cognitive architecture, our shared human experience.
So underneath all that diversity, there's a unity, a common thread that connects all human languages.
Exactly. And Tomasello points to those three grammars we discussed earlier, requesting, informing, and sharing as evidence of this unity. These grammars, in some form or another, are present in all human languages. They reflect our fundamental drive to connect with each other, to get our needs met, to share information, and to build relationships.
It's like we're all working with the same basic set of ingredients, but we're creating different dishes, different flavors, depending on our cultural context. But before we get too carried away, we need to take a closer look at how those three grammars, requesting, informing, and sharing, actually shape the evolution of grammar.
That's a great question.
How did those fundamental motives push language to become more complex, more nuanced, more capable of expressing the richness of human experience?
That's a great question, and it's one that takes us to the heart of what makes human language so unique. But we'll have to save that for our next segment. Stay tuned.
All right, we're back, and I'm ready to dive into these grammars.
Okay.
We've talked about requesting, informing, and sharing as these fundamental human motives that shaped language.
Yeah.
But how did they actually drive the evolution of grammar itself?
It's like each of these motives added a layer of complexity, pushing language to become more structured, more expressive, more capable of capturing the nuances of human thought and interaction. Let's start with requesting, because it seems like the most straightforward.
Yeah, pass the salt.
Right.
Can I borrow your pen?
Yeah.
What's so complicated about that?
Well, on the surface, it seems simple.
Yeah.
But even those basic requests require a certain amount of grammatical groundwork. You need a way to distinguish the action you want someone to perform from the object or person involved.
Right.
You need to be able to say who's doing what to whom, even in a very rudimentary way.
So even a simple, give me the apple, has some underlying structure.
Yes.
You have the action give, the recipient me, and the object, the apple. It's not just a string of random words.
Exactly. You're already starting to see the seeds of what Tomasello calls the grammar of requesting. Early humans would have needed ways to combine these elements, even before they had full-blown sentences, to make their needs known and to coordinate actions.
And this pressure to be understood, to get your needs met,
absolutely,
would have driven the development of more sophisticated ways of expressing these requests,
Absolutely. Think about those two-word phrases that toddlers use, like want cookie or go park. It's not perfect grammar. But it's a step towards a more structured way of communicating. And as social interactions become more complex, as we need to make more nuanced requests, the grammar has to evolve to keep up.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But how do we go from those simple requests to sentences that convey information about events, about things happening in the world around us?
That's where the grammar of informing comes in. When you want to tell someone something useful, to share information about something you've seen or experienced, you need a way to go beyond the here and now. You need to talk about the past.
The future. About things happening elsewhere. About multiple people involved.
So instead of just lying there, you might say, the lion chased the antelope yesterday.
Exactly.
Suddenly you're not just pointing, you're creating a mini narrative.
Exactly. You're marking time with yesterday. Specifying roles with chased. And connecting the lion and antelope to the action. You're building a sentence that conveys a whole sequence of events. Not just a static snapshot.
And this need to share helpful information. To warn others about danger. To teach them how to do something. Would have been a powerful driver.
It would have.
Of grammatical complexity.
Absolutely.
The more information you can pack into a sentence.
Yes.
The more useful that sentence becomes.
Precisely. And this pressure to convey information efficiently and accurately would have favored those who could use grammar effectively.
Who could structure their sentences in a way that was clear and unambiguous.
And this brings us back to the Nicaraguan Sign Language example. It's not just that they developed grammar. It's that the grammar became more complex over time. As new generations of signers needed to express more nuanced ideas.
Researchers have observed how younger signers who learn the language from older generations started using more sophisticated ways to mark time to indicate relationships between people and things to create more intricate narratives.
Wow. So we can actually witness the evolution of grammar happening in real time.
It's amazing, isn't it?
That's amazing.
But Tomasello doesn't stop there. He argues that there's a third grammar at play. A grammar that's not just about conveying information efficiently, but about connecting with others on a deeper level. He calls it the grammar of sharing.
Sharing. How is that different from just informing someone about something?
Think about telling a story. Sharing a personal experience. Or gossiping about someone. It's not just about conveying information. It's about engaging with the listener. About building rapport. About expressing your attitudes and emotions.
It's about creating a shared understanding. A sense of we, not just about transmitting data points.
Exactly. And that requires even more sophisticated grammatical tools.
Okay.
You need ways to relate multiple events, to track characters over time, to convey emotional nuances, to build suspense, to make your story come alive.
It's about weaving together a narrative.
Exactly.
A sequence of events that has meaning beyond the individual facts.
Yes.
It's about sharing your perspective on the world.
Yes.
Your interpretation of events.
Yes.
Your feelings about the people involved.
Precisely. And that's where we start to see the emergence of truly complex grammatical structures, the kind that allow us to create literature, poetry, drama, all the rich forms of expression that make human language so powerful.
So it's not just about survival anymore.
Right.
It's about connection.
Yes.
About creativity.
Yeah.
About using language to explore the depths of human experience.
You got it. And this drive to share our inner world, to connect with others on an emotional level, played a crucial role in shaping the evolution of language. It's what allowed us to move beyond simply stating facts, to weaving together stories, to creating art, to building the rich tapestry of human culture.
Wow, this has been an incredible journey.
It has been fun.
We've gone from ape gestures to the intricate tapestry of human language.
Yes.
And we've uncovered some profound insights along the way.
We have.
I feel like I'm seeing language and myself in a whole new light.
That's the power of exploring these big questions.
Oh, it really is.
It changes how we see the world.
Yeah.
And our place in it.
Thank you so much for being such a fantastic guide on this adventure.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
And for our listeners, if you've been captivated by this deep dive, I highly recommend checking out Tomasello's book.
Great book.
It's a challenging read.
It is.
But it's full of mind-blowing insights.
It is.
That will change how you think about language.
It will.
Communication.
Yeah.
And what it means to be human.
Until next time, keep exploring.
Yes.
Keep questioning.
Yeah.
And keep diving deep.